I'm Dr. Deb Butler, and you are listening to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is episode number 439. Welcome to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. If you're a woman and you're smart and you're successful and you've been struggling with weight your whole life, and now menopause is making it harder than ever, and you are ready to make this the last time you ever have to go on a diet again, then this podcast is for you. Stay tuned. Hi, all my dear friends all over the world. I'm actually looking at you today, and I have something very exciting that I want to share with you today. So if you remember, if you've been listening to my podcast lately, I did a podcast with one of my clients. I replayed it because it was a very popular download. Her name was Cynthia, and it was all about emotional eating. And if you want to see that podcast, you can go to my show notes and listen to that episode again. But today, I actually have Cynthia back. It was 2 years ago that we worked, and she came back today to talk about what it's like 2 years after working with me. Now, I think I have a great process, and I've told you about it, and I've interviewed many people on the process that they went through. But my favorite thing to do is to have them come back later and talk about where they're at. So today you're going to hear my interview, my new interview with Cynthia 2 years after we've worked together. And I call it Life After Working with Dr. Deb series. So Cynthia is now in that. And I think you'll find it entertaining and also very poignant. And you'll find how honest she is and also how vulnerable she is. But more than anything, how much better her life is now, 2 years after working with me, because of the process that she went through when she was working with me. So if you're looking for peace with food and to unburden yourself with the obsession of what to eat or feeling out of control around food, you are going to want to hear my new interview with Cynthia. So whatever you do when you're listening to this podcast, take a walk, take a drive, or maybe you're watching my interview. Maybe you're watching this video. Have a look. You are going to love this interview. Enjoy. Hi, Cynthia. Welcome back.
Hi, Dr. Deb. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And the reason that you are back is because we did an interview 2 years ago, right after we finished working together. And you were on my podcast for your experience of what it was like to work with me 2 years ago, which is hard for me to believe. And I sent you an email because I wanted to replay that interview because it was a very popular downloaded episode of what we did. So I was looking for something to do about emotional eating, and your interview is perfect for that. And I ran it again and told you that I was running it again and wanted to know how you were doing. And you sent me such a beautiful email about how well you're thriving, because I asked if you're thriving. Mm-hmm. And your email was just so beautiful. And you told me you're doing so well. And what I want to know, and what I want people to know who are listening to this, is that this isn't a one-stop shop where you work with me for a little bit and then it goes down the drain and then you forget about it. Mm-hmm. And I have a Life After Working with Dr. Deb series, I call it, where I get to come back and talk to some of my clients after a while and see what's happening. So you seem like a really good candidate for me to find out how my work 2 years ago has impacted you, because I know that when you and I were working together, you impacted me because Number one, you really were working very, very hard on yourself, and you had some very painful things that you and I worked on together. And you were so determined to go through it. And what I love about talking to you now is that I know you're in a good place, but I want you to explain it to people, but also to understand that it's not just about the food. And
No.
and when you and I first started talking, and just to remind people, I just replayed our podcast, and I'll put it in the show notes about what number it is if you want to go back and listen to my first interview that I did with Cynthia. And then you can listen to this interview if you want. But I just want to know what impacted you the most, and also to remind people that you came on my podcast maybe a year before you even started working with me to be coached on your problem with eating sugar. You were coming on as sugar is my problem. I need help with it.
Yeah.
So, that being said, I don't think sugar is as much of a problem for you now. I want to know why. Chocolate chip cookies was a very, very big deal to you 2 years ago. I want to know about those chocolate chip cookies. And because I know you're a hard worker and I know you're very concerned with your health, I just want to know where you are now compared, because when we ended, chocolate chip cookies were not a big deal anymore. Sugar was not a big deal anymore because we went through a lot of different sessions on you feeling like you couldn't control yourself around sugar, chocolate cake. I remember a party that you were going to where you were going to bring chocolate cake, and do you remember that?
I
And
do.
and you were almost frightened
Yes.
of yourself, of what you might do with that chocolate cake. So your fear of eating sugar, and you never had a lot of weight to lose. I think it was like 8 pounds, 9 pounds, something like that. And I think you might have lost a couple pounds back then, but you lost so much of the burden. And you're here 2 years later to talk about what it's like to not have that burden anymore, and how your life is different because of that.
Yes.
I just did a lot of talking.
Yes. But that's okay because it kind of brings me back to
Yeah.
where I was a little bit
Yeah, because you could forget.
because since I'm not there anymore, it's almost hard for me to really relate to that person.
Do you remember her a little bit that you could talk
Yes,
about where you
I
were? Talk about that a little
do.
bit?
I was completely addicted, for lack of a better word, to
Mhm.
sugar. And it was such an overwhelming feeling of I have to have it, I've planned for it, think about it, try not to have it. All of that struggle
Mhm.
around sweets. And now I'm free of that.
So are you still?
I am free of it still.
You're
Yes.
free of it. Okay.
Yes. I am definitely not to the level of what I call addiction that
Well,
I
it
was.
was never an addiction. It was your thinking.
Well, it
You
was my
thought you
thinking.
were addicted,
Yes.
which was part of the problem, was your
Yes.
thinking about it.
That's true. And there is kind of a physiological component to
Yes,
that.
there is. There is.
So I guess when I say addiction, that's what I'm referring to is the physiological component because as I eat sugar, I just want more.
Which is what sugar does to any brain, not just your
Right.
brain.
And
It does it
so,
to anybody's brain. But that doesn't mean you're addicted because it does it to your brain. But when you think you are, you're more apt to keep doing it,
okay.
if
So,
that makes sense.
yes, I understand what you're saying. At that time, it felt 100% like an addiction.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know.
So now I don't have that. I don't seek out sweet things, sugar. I don't make cookies. I don't,
You don't make chocolate chip cookies?
sometimes I do make cookies for my grandkids,
Yeah.
but they're just not that good.
Oh my gosh, I cannot believe because if you go back and listen
I
to
know.
your first podcast, your chocolate chip cookies were the best. Like you didn't just eat chocolate chip cookies, you had to have
Well, for
your
me, they
chocolate
were
chip
the
cookies.
best. For me, they were the best, you
Yeah,
know.
there you go.
But I think the process of making them was also involved in that thinking that I was doing something for myself, and it kind of filled me somehow,
Mhm.
which I thought it did. It kind of eased and a wanting or something, just the process of making them. But now I don't have that feeling anymore that
Mhm.
I need to make them. It's like, oh, well, it's just the same as making a salad or a chuck roast or anything.
Wow.
So I don't really make them very often. When I
I can't
do,
believe that. That's a big change from 2 years ago.
I know.
Even when we were through working together, you still were the chocolate chip queen.
Yes. And once I got into seriously looking at nutrition for me,
Okay, so I'm gonna stop you for 1 minute because this is
okay.
really important. When did you start really seriously looking at nutrition? It was kind of while we were working and after we got through working, right?
Yeah, it was after we got through working. Then my obsessive nature, you could call it,
Mhm.
whatever, the way my brain works, is that I needed to go and find out everything and anything I could about nutrition. And I want to do the right thing. And I'm going to fix this if it kills me, you
Well,
know?
I think what's interesting about that I think our listeners would be really interested about is that you always thought you were eating nutritious foods. And I remember our conversations about is that really fuel food for you? Like we had a lot of conversations about what you really thought was healthy for you. And I think because of your addiction to sugar,
Yeah.
it kind of got in your way. Like you were more motivated to figure out how you could eat sugar and still lose weight and not feel like it's controlling you more than you wanted to eat the right foods for yourself.
Right. And that is a really good point because I couldn't see that at the time,
I know.
but that is true because I was eating very nutritious foods. But
Yeah.
then in addition to that, I was way overdoing the whole sweets thing. So I looked at the possibility that I wasn't getting enough nutrition, and this might be a reason for my brain to be craving sugar, carbs, and all that.
Interesting.
So I started actually eating a lot more protein, and those physical sugar cravings or whatever it was going on in my brain really subsided.
So let me ask you a question because I think what happened, because I think what you eat is important, of course, but what you think is what leads you to what you eat. And the way that you were thinking prior to us working together was more like, I deserve to be able to have these cookies. I should be
Yes.
able to eat all this. And now it's like, I think the way that you think from working together is you actually deserve to have the best nutritious food that you can figure out to put in your body more than how you can eat cookies.
Yes, that is true. And then there was also kind of the pleasure principle
Yes.
of all of the sweets because I wasn't allowing myself maybe to get pleasure from anything other than sweets.
Oh my gosh, and isn't that fascinating? Because, I call them joy foods, and we
Yeah.
talked a lot about you're gonna eat more joy foods, you're gonna see more in your food journal if you're looking for joy in all the wrong places.
Yeah. And so when I embarked on this whole nutrition and strength training and, because
After we were through working together.
after we were done, health and fitness has always been a big driver in my life.
Yes.
And once I started delving into all the actual real science and not
Yeah,
looking at the stupid food pyramid that has
yeah.
carbs at the top of the list, I found that I was doing much better. I felt better physically and mentally, and feeling better physically led to my better thought processes.
It's interesting how when I work with clients and when I worked with you, we actually started with the thought processes first, and then we moved over to what you're actually putting in your mouth. And the reason that I do the thought processes first and then go to food is first you clean up your head as much as you can, and then
Mhm.
you start seeing how much food is affecting your head.
Well, that is exactly what happened because I had to get through the whole thought process and the CTFAR formula, and I had to get through
Model.
all of that and uncover some of the unknown beliefs that I had
Yes.
in order to move on to
Mhm.
the next stage, which for me was okay, now what should I be eating? What is going to make me feel the best? What is going to give me the best?
Yes, because there's no drama around food anymore.
Exactly.
Now it's just, what do I need to have the best life possible so that I
Yeah.
can get old and enjoy myself and feel good and strong, as opposed to, well, how am I going to get those darn cookies? The
Yes.
drama when the
And
when that ends, it's like, no, how do I take care of myself?
right. And how do I not be gripped by this drive for having sweet carbs and junk like that? Because I mean, now I can eat a half a piece of cake. I don't even really like cake very much, but if I have something sweet, it tastes sweet for a few bites, and then after that, it doesn't taste like anything.
That is the work that we did, Miss Cynthia. Is the whole idea of a joy eat is you have a few bites, you enjoy it as much as you can, and as soon as the enjoyment factor is
Mhm.
over, which is you are exactly saying, it doesn't last that long when you're
Mhm.
really paying attention.
It's
And
not
before you were paying
really.
attention, you could not get enough of those cookies.
I know, because I was looking for pleasure that was evading me. It wasn't giving me what I needed, what I wanted. And so now food is not a big drama at all. It isn't.
Hallelujah.
It
I
isn't a
mean,
drama. It's not a burden. I'm not carrying this huge weight around worrying about food. I mean, obviously, I have a husband, I gotta feed him. I gotta, you know.
I have a husband, he has to feed me. So
Oh, well,
there
see,
you
that's
go.
ideal
That
because
well,
I'd rather not cook. I'd rather not think about, what's for dinner. But anyway, I have to do that.
yeah.
And so I just make it like it's just part of my lifestyle. And I cook and prepare extremely healthy meals that, oh, another thing that I did
What?
recently in the last year was I got a CGM and I saw the hard data,
What is the CGM?
continuous glucose monitor.
Oh, okay.
And so it measures your
Yes,
blood
I'm
sugar.
aware.
And I'd experiment. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to eat these two cookies, and I'd see the
Mhm.
glucose would shoot way up. And then when the glucose shoots way up like that, then you have a huge release of insulin, which is your fat storage hormone. So you can't ever really lose weight if your glucose level is high all the time and you have all these spikes.
Amen, sister.
So
But here's the thing. Here's the thing I want to say to you. With all the things that you've done since we've been working together, I don't think you're doing them because you're obsessed with losing weight anymore. And
no,
I think you're doing them purely to take as good a care of yourself as possible and to learn as much as you can, not so you can be skinny. But I mean, seriously, most people come to me because they say, I want to be healthy. But really, what they mean is that they want to be thin. And in the end, especially as we get older, the focus has to be, how can I take better care of myself and what can I put in this body? And the reason I keep saying that is because you weren't there when we were working together and you are so much there now. That's the difference that I see in you over the 2 years, and
yeah.
that you do it because you love and care about yourself that much.
I do, and I always have cared about health and all, but I think that
Yes.
when I was younger, I could get away with a heck of a lot more
But you were
than.
doing things that you shouldn't have gotten away with, but you did get away with it.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
it's
that's
probably
right.
there's a lot of things that we've done when we were younger that even though we got away with it, I'm really glad we can't get away with it anymore because there's nothing that was really that good that we should have been
No,
doing to begin with.
that's exactly right. I just feel now like I wanna have all the optimal health values that I can, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to make that happen.
and you don't have any drama around food. So you can take food in or you could take it out. And it's not like, "Oh, why can't I have that anymore?" I mean, there's none of that
No,
going on
it's none
anymore.
of that. I don't have the drama. I mean, I did listen to my podcast with you that was from a couple of years ago. I did
Yeah.
listen to, and I just kind of marveled at myself that I have changed so much in my outlook and my attitudes that, I mean, I recognized that person that was talking and I understood, but I wasn't there anymore. I got to the next level of taking care of myself without obsessing and dramatizing everything about weight and food and what to eat and what not to eat, all that. Now it's really, really simple. It's very simple.
Well, it's very simple when the brain gets out of the way with, "I want this and I want that," and temper tantrums all over the place.
You know what is
What?
so amazing to me that the last 2 years, whatever, since we were working together,
Yeah.
that my brain has been trained that I do not have any of those thoughts anymore that I used to have.
You have retrained your brain.
I did retrain my brain and I just thought, isn't that wonderful? And we could teach everybody how to train their brain so that they don't have obsessions and worries. And it's just about what your thoughts are and how you manage your thoughts. For me, how I manage my thoughts is really
Yes.
the thing right now.
Well, that's everything I think we did when we were working together because that is the thinner peace
That's
process.
what we did. Yeah.
That's what you did, and I want everybody to know that's listening to this is that it's available to everybody, that anybody can retrain their brain.
I didn't know that it was really, really, truly possible.
I know you didn't. I know. But you came in, you decided to work with me. I mean, like, I did a podcast with you where I coached you about sugar a
Mhm.
year before you came in to work with me. And how long do you think you were listening to my podcast before you decided to work with me? It was a while, wasn't it?
Well, actually, I remember it very well. The first podcast that I did with you was about sugar, and that was
Yeah.
2 years before I started working with you.
Ah,
You know, you coached me on the phone and we talked about sugar and, well, it's just food. And so it kind of cut down all the drama about that. And I thought, well, you know what? I can do this now because I already knew all of the techniques and the rules and everything that you were teaching because I'd listened to
because you've
multiple
listened to all my tools.
I listened to everything. So I thought, oh, I can do this now because I
Mhm,
have the information.
mhm.
And so then it was another 2 years of trying to coach myself and figure things out before I contacted you and started working with you. So I've been going through this process of the thinner piece for probably 5 years, 5.5 years or so.
Altogether between
And
listening
so
to me and working with me
right.
and
And
mhm,
doing a lot on my own,
yeah,
working the model, doing the
yes.
best I could. And so finally, I just decided, oh, ugh, I can't do it by myself. So then when I started working with you, I remember that it was really difficult in the first month because
Right. Correct.
once I started journaling the food, I didn't want to eat poorly or binge on cookies or anything like I didn't want to because then I have to write it down. And I didn't want to do that. So I quit kind of eating
Cold
all of
turkey, like you
the
just because once you started journaling it and you didn't wanna see it, so you stopped so much joy eating
I
for the
stopped
first
so
3 or
much
4
of
weeks.
that
Mhm.
joy eating,
And what happened?
and I became very depressed.
And do you remember because we had a few sessions where you were depressed and you thought like, "I didn't sign up for this."
Well, I did understand that it was part of the process.
Why were you depressed? Tell everybody why you were depressed.
Well, because I wasn't getting to stuff all those my feelings and my feelings of grief and loss and pain with cookies and baking and eating and trying to figure out what I was going to eat next and all that thing. It almost sounds like I would have been really, really overweight, but I wasn't because I have such a strict self discipline about health and fitness. And that's been my habit over the last 40 or 50 years. because I could have easily been 100 pounds overweight if I just kept eating that way and allowed myself to do that.
But you had, and I think this is interesting for everybody that's listening, is most people have their tricks and their tips of how they keep whatever weight they're at. They have a way of doing it. And usually the way they have of doing it is not really beneficial. I
Mhm,
had tricks and tips, and Weight Watchers was my thing so that I could do crazy things.
mhm.
If it was overeating or eating a bag of potato chips or whatever it was, where I could do that and then figure out a way to still weigh what I wanted to weigh. But it was
Right, and
like
then
crazy.
yeah, and then you always have this upper limit in your mind, like,
Right.
"Hey, when I get to be 150 or 160, that's it. Then then
Everybody's
I'm gonna
listening
take
to this.
action."
Yes, everybody's got
I
it.
don't
It's like,
I don't
so
I
what's
don't
it like
have
for you now that
don't
you
have that anymore.
don't have
I
that
don't have
anymore?
that anymore. I mean, I do weigh myself occasionally just to see, out of curiosity.
I think it's
Um,
good to weigh yourself,
yeah, and it kind of
watch your brain.
keeps me in a positive frame of mind to see that I'm really not gaining weight because I'm eating a lot of protein.
Mhm.
And in the process of trying to gain muscle, I have to eat more protein than I really want to, but it keeps me full, it keeps me satiated, and it makes me feel good. And my weight stays very stable, and I'm getting strong.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah, I'm really strong now.
it sounds like you are mentally and physically,
Yeah, I do feel
but
that
you
way.
got strong mentally first. That's
Yes,
the only way
it's
that you
true.
could.
I had to learn to manage my thinking. I really
Yes, you
did.
did.
I had to learn how to have myself give myself thoughts that were serving me, not thoughts that were degrading me. And now it's just automatic.
It's
Like,
automatic because you've trained your brain. And, in a way, I think some of it's automatic, but I think some of it just takes management. I mean, where you can see what's going on with yourself and you can say, is this serving me? Is it not serving me? I don't know that everything that goes through your brain is going to be positive and wonderful and good.
no,
I
it's
don't
not,
think we're
but
made that way.
I choose the thoughts that I'm gonna go with.
That's what I
I
teach.
so I
That's what I
recognize
teach.
I'm very aware of the thoughts that are coming into my mind, and I can nip them in the bud, or I can promote them. I can have the thoughts that I want to have, and
Well,
it's
I
not
did teach you that, didn't I?
yes, and it's not hard anymore.
Everybody listen to that because a lot of people think, oh my God, this is going to be so hard. But I think the way that you were living prior to working with me was so much harder than the work that you did while you were working with me to get where you are now.
It was
That was decades.
yeah, it was emotionally exhausting.
And to undo all that and to end up where you've created a life that you want, whatever was hard, was it worth it?
Yeah, definitely it was worth it because, I mean, it was only 3 months of training. It seemed like it went on forever, but
3 months can seem like
because
forever
because
sometimes.
it was difficult and I
Yeah.
really focused on it and I became dedicated to, I don't wanna
Yeah.
live the rest of my life like this, and I've
Yes.
gotta really just go with the program and allow it to do what it's gonna do.
Mhm.
And that seems like longer ago than 2 years because so much has transpired in the last 2 years that I've improved in my thought processes, in my physical health, and just my lack a lot less stress in my life because of the whole food thing.
Yeah, I do know. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're thinking about food all the time and wondering if you're gonna be able to control yourself or wondering if you're not gonna be able to control yourself or is this gonna be a big binge? I mean,
Mhm.
the fear and the worry and the obsession that you had with not a lot of weight on your body was a lot of weight on your head.
It was.
So let
It
me
was.
ask you this. Let me ask you this, Cynthia, as we're ending this podcast. And I asked you this 2 years ago too, but I want to ask you again as people are listening. Now that you're 2 years out
Mhm.
and you sound better to me now than you did when I interviewed you 2 years ago, which is my hope with everybody that I work with, that they take this work and
Mhm.
they make it their own and they make their life better,
Mhm.
which you have done. What would you say to the people who are out there who are listening, who were where you were 5 years ago in one way, shape, or another? What would you say to them now about working with me or doing this work?
If I go back 5 or 6 years and think about where I was when I first started listening to your podcast,
Yeah.
it's very difficult for me to say to somebody else, "Oh, yeah, you should go and do this right now."
Mm.
Because I think that there has to come a time where you decide that this is it and this is the program I need, and it takes time to get there.
So when
Um,
somebody gets there, what should they do? Because I know there are people who get there who don't do anything. And then there are people like you who get there and say, "This is it, I'm doing it." So
oh, I see. I guess that's hard for me to articulate because I can't imagine somebody getting to a point of despair and frustration and having such a burden on their shoulders that they wouldn't want to jump at the chance to relieve all that and to have a better life.
I think some of the things that go through people's heads when they're at that place is, well, what if it doesn't work? Or it's
Yes,
too expensive? Or I'm not worth it? Or I'll never be able to do it? Those are all the things that come up,
they
even
are.
when,
They are. And those things came up for me to
yeah,
varying degrees, but I'm stubborn and I just wanted to fix it. And also, I think once you have to make a decision and then make that decision be the right decision.
I love that.
You know what? Because when I threw myself into the program, I decided that this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do everything I'm supposed to do, and it's going to work. And I don't know how it's going to work, and I don't know how I'm going to be when I come through the end of it, but it can't be worse than where I am now.
I want everybody to hear that because you have been through it and you have the same thoughts that some of these people are having right now.
Yeah,
And I really do think that you're right about it's just you have to make a decision and jump in
you
and
do.
have faith, I guess, or trust
Hmm.
that this is right for you and then go for it. And then with 100% go for it. Because once you
Yeah.
decided to work with me, you were in it 100%, which is
Yeah.
why you got what you wanted. You weren't like pitty paddling around. You were in it.
Yeah, that's right. I was,
I
because
know
I
you were.
decided, and making a decision like that, I think you do have to have a certain amount of determination and stubbornness and just stick to itiveness that will get you through. And, I've run a lot of marathons in my life, and every one of them taught me that you make the decision that you're going to do it, you train for it, you get ready for it, you do the best you can, and then you just go out there and you just step by step finish it. And that's how I approach most things in life,
Well,
is kind of like a marathon.
I love it. And it's thrilling. I'm delighted to see you again and talk to you again and to see your smile on your face and the progress that you've made. And also, it's almost like affirmation to myself that when I decided to do this work many, many years ago, that I was also on the right track. When
Mhm.
I have so many clients just like you who can come back
Yeah, and
and
say that this worked for me. This was valuable training. I'm so glad I did it. I might have gone back and done it sooner if I could have. But I just did it when I could decide to do it,
when it
and
was
it
time, when
it
it
took
was
a
time.
lot for me to decide because all of those things that people are thinking about, the time and the expense and the commitment, and what if it doesn't work? I mean, that's kind of the scariest thought of all.
How did you get through that? Because I
I
would say
just
that's one of that and the expense are the 2 things that stops people.
Because I decided that it was going to work.
I got it.
I decided to work the program the way you said, and I just put my faith in the program. And I had listened to you long enough, so many podcasts, all of them, that I knew that I was convinced that if I followed it, that even I could overcome my sweet addiction.
I love it. And for anybody that's listening, even you, whoever you are out there who's listening, even you, if you do what I tell you to do,
Hmm.
can have thinner peace too.
Yeah. And don't expect it to be a piece of cake because it's not easy, but
Quote unquote piece of
it's
cake.
exactly. It isn't easy because, for one thing, if you're a person who is a bit reserved or shy or somebody that doesn't share their feelings with people really readily, then it's kind of challenging. But I found that I could be almost talkative and
You
be able
were.
to express myself in a way that I'm not accustomed to
You think
because
that's because I of
I
the
think that's
way
because you listen. I think because you listen, and unfortunately, a lot of the people that we talk to really aren't listening to us.
Mhm.
They are thinking of what they want to say next. And
Well,
so
I'm glad you don't think I do that.
no, no, I
Oh my
don't.
gosh.
I think you listen and you hear what I'm trying to say,
Mhm.
even if it's not coming out the way I want it to, you understand. And I think that's a gift.
Thank you. And all I can say is that you were a delight and you worked hard. And I think that this is available to anybody out there who resonates with what you're saying.
Mhm.
And even when you talk about it not being a piece of cake, most just like you, when you came to me, it was so hard the way you were living that this probably seemed easier. If you really think about it, if you really think about it, the idea that you could be free,
Mhm.
the possibility that you could be free, and then the decision to do it, to
Mhm.
do whatever it takes, because you did make that decision. Once you made the decision, it was to do whatever it takes and to open yourself up and to feel safe to open yourself up.
Mhm. Yeah, that is really a critical factor right there is being able to feel comfortable enough to say whatever it is, even if it doesn't sound pretty, even if it's not. Sometimes the words don't come easily. And I think that you make it easier to express myself. And I think that that would happen for anybody, any personality type, any person that you would come into contact with. I think they would feel comfortable and safe telling you anything or whatever.
That's wonderful. I'm glad that you think that, and I'm glad that people are hearing that. And also, it's not only what comes out of your mouth of what you have to say to me, but it's also being able to write down what you're putting in your mouth too.
Mhm.
And even though you decided to work with me because you wanted to figure out the food thing, and at the
Mhm.
same time, in many ways, it was so little about the food. The transformation that you had was so much bigger than what you were putting in your mouth. But by finding out what you're putting in your mouth helped you and helped me transform your brain into a better life.
Yes, because I've had this insight over and over again since we worked together. But what was really in my heart, what I was trying to make it go away, was a lot of grief. And
A lot of
uh,
sadness.
yes, grief and sadness. And I realized when I was writing things down, I'm like, why am I eating this? It's not even, doesn't even taste good.
Yeah,
I don't really want it. I'm not hungry. So I'd have to really delve into my psyche or my heart and say,
mhm.
what is all this about? And there was just a lot of sadness.
Which is why cookies and all the sweets and treats seem like so necessary.
It was the way I coped.
And once you stop using that to cope with and the actual emotions came up,
Mhm.
then we could work with them.
Mhm.
And hence, because you were willing to work with them, you are here now 2 years later in so much of a better place because of what you were putting in your mouth emotionally.
Yeah. It's a peeling the onion process.
It is. It's a good way to put it.
And I learned a lot about myself through that process, through the centerpiece process that has given me a lot to think about just in my life and just in the last 2 years. And I'm happy. I'm doing well. I'm very comfortable in my body. I'm comfortable with my food. There's no drama.
Well, I think it's a good place to end because that's what you wanted when you came into the program 2 years ago. And 2 years later, you're there even more than you were then.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank you so much for coming back and telling your story two
Having
years
me.
later.
I hope it does help somebody. I really do, because it helped me a lot.
Yeah, I think it will. You're honest and you're transparent and you're just telling us the way that it was. And people need to hear that because I can get on and talk, but it's me. But
Mhm,
when you get
mhm.
on and talk about your experience with this, of course, I don't have a gun to your head and I'm not paying you anything. You're just trying to pay it forward.
That's exactly right. I'm not somebody that wants to put my thoughts or my voice out there into the public
It's really,
realm,
yeah.
but I just hope that my experience will help someone to go in the right direction for them. And if it means working with you, then I totally applaud that because it's what worked for me.
Cynthia, thank you so much for coming back and talking to me. It's a pleasure seeing you today. It was a pleasure working with you then. And thank you,
Thank
thank you, thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
If you're loving my podcast and you would like some more information to be able to follow along with, then please go to drdebbutler.com/change and you can get a free copy of my companion book that goes with this podcast that I refer to in many different episodes. That is drdebbutler.com/change. CHANGE.